Thank you, Jeff, and a very good morning to everyone. When I say jumbo, you say jumbo. Jumbo. Thank you so much, and get so much love from Africa and Kenya to be precise. Thank you. And standing here after the minister, I feel like we were talking in spirit. And whatever she touched on, I have them in my slides. And I thought, did we get to each other in our dreams, or what was happening? But one thing that she talked about was living in a world of uncertainties. And that is the most certain thing that we are living in. And listening to her, I saw why Indonesia is way, way ahead. I saw soft power at work. You know, listening to the minister and her strategies and her approach, you could see that it was not by coincidence. It was all deliberate and it was all designed. So when you talk about soft power, which of course she embodies, telling you the hard things, but telling you with love. Telling you that I'm going to kill you, but I'm going to kill you softly. You know, those kind of things. When she talked about trust as a communicator, when she talked about the need to be authentic, and listening to her, I saw an excellent storyteller. As communicators, we are called to do that. I remember what Boy was saying and what Justine was saying in terms of communicators having to be responsible, the matter of ethics, consciousness. As communicators, you are the pulse of the institution. And of course, we are guardians of reputation and the police. So could I have my slides kindly? Second slide. Thank you. And so I'm just giving a very small overview in terms of the soft power and of course hard power. But when you talk about that, I think we need to talk about the new thing in the room, smart power. Because will soft power always take us where we want to go? Has hard power taken us where we want to go? What about a mix of the two? And that's why we are coining the word that we have now, the new thinking and the new paradigm in terms of smart power. And smart power then is a blend of both the hard power and the soft power. And at which point then do you have to use the smart power? And what about the components of hard power? And for the communicators in this room, those who work in government, those who are in charge of the big multinationals, you have power. How many times do you flex the power? I mean, because you have control. If you call the editor of a newsroom, tell them, don't flight that story. If you flight it, I'm not going to give you an advert. And how many of us have done it here? To save our jobs, perhaps? To ensure that our reputation remains intact? You know? And so hard power is about coercion, you know? You need to have this headline. You need to have this story. Because you know we are the biggest spenders on your media house. Hard power is about crisis management. You're always sorting out issues because you've messed them up in the first place. Because you used your power to push your way around. And hard power is about media manipulation. We talk about then, how is it? You are talking, it's just about direct. There is no feeling. There's no humanness when I'm talking to you. And as communicators, we are victims of this because we do this. And when I talk here, I talk as a journalist. I started off my career in the newsroom. And so I felt the power from the people who were telling me, don't flight that story because next time you're following this other story, I'm not going to give you the story. And so because I want the story, the next story looks bigger than the current story, I would keep quiet. Then I moved over into corporate communications. And so now I'm using the media, both as a consumer and as a medium. And so then I have to start balancing. What do they want to hear? What do I want them to hear? And what do I want the public to hear? And what about the time frame for hard power? It is a nice one, but it is very short-lived. The minister did speak about the issue of having an approach that is long-term. And when you use soft power, you realize that that's long-term. It's more sustained. It gives you better results. And what about the advantages of hard power and the disadvantages of hard power? That's all there to say. But I want to talk about soft power, and that's what, as communicators, makes the difference. That when I talk to my boss, when you talk to your boss, you are able to say the same thing with a different choice of words and a different approach. As a communicator, there are very many strategies that you can use to get the same thing done. And so we're talking about soft power. It's about attraction. It's the humanness in you and myself. Can we connect at the heart level? And again, I want to refer to what the minister said. She asked about the birthday, the small things that nobody would think about. But that brings out the humanness that we all carry. And so when we go back to our offices and in our corner offices and in our corridor kind of offices, which approach do we use? I am a proponent of smart power. And why that? Because then the smart power enables me to do a lot of contextualization in terms of knowing which type of approaches I will use. With smart power, I'm able to balance, and that is also a risk. At times you might balance well, at times you might not balance very well. But what about the issue? Let's look at the approach when you're using soft power. It's about persuasion. As communicators, that is the biggest tool that we carry. I'm able to persuade you. I'm able to influence you. I'm able to carry you along. I'm able to tell you the brand story so that then you believe in it. You also become an ambassador for the story. You become an influencer. That is why I ask you, why do you put on Adidas and not Nike? They didn't force you to do it. They persuaded you. Maybe it's the story they said. Maybe it's how they visualized. Jeff talked about visualization. Maybe it's what they do in the communities that you feel identifies with your values. Soft power. Soft power is long-term. Soft power, you can enjoy it. As we say back home, you can eat on it. It's a fragrance that stays with you for a longer time. And somebody can come after you and benefit and pick from it and go and run with it. And it builds on the heart because it's talking to you and talking to me from the heart. It is slow, it is subtle, and it has more affection. Then we talk about smart power. As a communicator, you've got to be strategic. And so smart power then, while it could be slow, you have to be very careful because it's balancing. It's balancing your interests. It's balancing the interests of the citizenry. It's balancing the shareholder interests. It's balancing the director interests. And of course, the government interests. It's flexible. The minister spoke about adaptability. Smart power is flexible. Smart power is adaptive. You look at it, at which point are you hitting them with facts? At which point are you going low? At which point are you getting in with a skit? At which point are you giving the laws that define or the laws on which your actions are premised? So it's all about balancing. It's all about contextualizing. I want to go to the next slide and bring it home as a PR person, because now we need to go to the reality on the ground. Let me have the next slide, kindly. Next slide. Thank you. So as a PR person, how do we then get to use the various strategies when we want to implement this? I'll talk about soft power. You need to have strategic messaging skills and communication. And this is continuous because you understand what is at play. You are able to review, you're able to scan the environment. You are able to know what needs to be said. You are able to know what your stakeholders are expecting. And so you craft your message to speak to them. It's about corporate storytelling. I think Indonesia, in the minister who just spoke, you had the best corporate storyteller. And that was soft power at play. Get the best storyteller. And with that, you influence. We saw she had 1.2 million followers All that is an influence space. We talk about content creation, corporate social responsibility. When we see Nike supporting communities, whatever you are doing at your institutional level, it's soft power. And when you do soft power, we see the consciousness of the organization. What about the issue of influencers? And you also need to identify the influencers who are authentic, influencers who speak to your values, influencers who you know would help push the brand, not influencers with whom you're at crossroads with. Soft power is about transparency and openness. It's about authenticity. As a communicator, I think the times we are in now, they call for authenticity more than ever. As a practitioner, 20 years or so in the field, I can tell you that I have learned that truth sells. Truth is sustainable. At times it's difficult. But the beauty about it is that you don't have to keep on covering it. If you say the same thing at 1 p.m., you'll say it at 4 p.m., you'll say it at 6 p.m. And so it becomes easy to run with it. Smart power, which I think we should all embrace moving forward. Because there are times when we are in the offices, when we are caught up with a crisis, when your boss is caught up doing something and as a communicator you've got to sort it out, when there's a spill of oil for those in the oil industry, when a quote has been misquoted, when somebody says I was misquoted, what do you do? And how do you approach it? I like the approach of smart power because it is integrated. I can use various approaches, various strategies, depending on all that. That is in contrast to the hard power where you have like a hammer. So everything is a nail, you know? You're fixing and you're hitting it against the wall. Media engagement, you need to engage the media. Tell them the story. Give them the facts. And you know when you engage them, when you tell them the facts, then you have some bit of soft control. Because then they know the parameters within which you are working. They know what you can do. They know what you cannot do. And so they know even when they're saying some things, it's right or it's wrong. Reputation management, critical. As an organization, the world is all about reputation management. That's why we do the things we do. And that's what organizations are taking to the bank. What's your reputation? What's your brand identity? What's the image that you want people to have? What's your brand value? And so the brand value is about reputation. And so as a communicator, when you go back to your office, please focus on that. Stakeholder engagement. It's about talking with people, not talking at people. And talking with people and having a connection. The humanness. Speaking to the heart and not the head. In my experience, speaking to the heart carries the day for me. Cultural diplomacy, big time. Big time. I don't think I need to talk about that. The minister did that very well. Narrative control. And I would call it maybe a bit of framing for those who went to PR school, the theories of communication. You must frame. And framing is right. You frame with facts. And so you must be ahead of the narrative. Ensure that at all times you are directing the narrative. When you direct the narrative, it is easier than playing catch-up. It's easier than trying to do crisis. And then, of course, the issue of influencing global and public opinion. I thank you.
Excellent, Noella. Excellent. Thank you.